Good day, everybody, and welcome back to Thrive 2021. My name is Robert Lamanna. I will be your host for today's session on what's new in Clubhouse Online. I trust everybody's been enjoying all the sessions they've gone through so far, and hopefully that continues with this one. On today's presentation will be myself and my colleague Bill Buck, who's yet to join us. He's just on another session at the moment. He should be joining us shortly. I am the product manager for Clubhouse Online, as well as Jonas Activity Management, and Bill is our chief product officer. I'm sure you guys have been on a number of these already. However, it's always important for those who haven't to understand sort of how it's going to work. I cannot see you nor hear you. However, you will have the ability to communicate with me by way of the chat box. I'll be able to see those comments as the presentation goes on, and I'll try to address as many of them as I can as they come in. There will be time for general Q&A at the end of the presentation, but like I said, as things go through, it's fine to ask questions in context of something you see on screen, and I'll do my best to answer them as they come up. And as I was saying that, my colleague Bill Buck just joined us. Good morning, Bill.
Morning, everyone.
All right, so during today's presentation, what we'll be covering is what's new in Clubhouse Online, likely your website or a website you're looking and considering for your club. We'll cover a number of things that we've changed and improved throughout the course of 2020, ranging from appointment booking, event management, all the way through simple content management within your website. So without further ado, let me kick right off with appointment booking. So appointment booking is a module released probably 3 or 4 years ago now, and it's got sort of a wide range of applications. It can cover anything, from golf lessons or tennis lessons, personal training, massage, really anything that's sort of a one-on-one or a one to a small group of people appointment that you're booking a particular person or a particular resource for at a given time. During 2020, we made this module responsive. And what that means is that it's a single user experience that is slightly modified depending on how the user is interacting with it. So whether they're using a desktop computer or a tablet or even a mobile device, it's a single user experience. It's one page to update. It's one page for the members to view. And like I said, it just reorients itself to suit the device on which they're viewing it. For an example of what it looks like, we are looking at two different views here, which one is desktop on the left, and on the right we have the mobile view. As you can see on the desktop, you can see a number of days. I think it's 6 days or 7 days, whereas on the mobile, you can only see a couple of days at a time. But the same basic user experience in terms you select the provider, you select the service, and you select sort of the filter, whether you want to see all times, only those available, or what have you. And by way of this application, members can book appointments with providers in a particular activity type. What's nice about this is that they have the ability to create different pages on the website for different, what we consider activity types, which would be different types of appointments. So if you wanted to have one for personal training, another page for golf lessons, and a third page for tennis lessons, or whatever services you're looking to provide through this, you can have separate pages on the website so members are going to a specific page for a specific purpose. Of course, within a given activity type, you could have many providers, in which case that's where that drop-down comes in handy. They can select the provider they want, or alternatively, they can select the service they want, and that'll filter the list of providers. So suitable, like I said, for anything that's a one-on-one or one to small group appointment, where when you book it, it's yours, no one else can take it. It suits any of those scenarios. Let's transition over to event management. So this is a system on your website wherein members can book for club-hosted events and register on behalf of themselves, their family, their friends, any other members, guests. We've added some new stuff for members specifically, the ability to print events. So when we went responsive with the event module, we took away the ability to print the calendar off, and we've reinstated it in a slightly different way. So instead of being bound by the limitations of a calendar grid when you're printing it off, it's going to print a list, and it's going to use as many pages as it needs to accommodate all of the events within your calendar. And so you see on the right-hand side, that's an example of what the printout will look like. Like I said, it'll print on as many pages as necessary, but it's basically printing off the list view of events. And again, the rationale behind that is that when you have that calendar grid, it's somewhat limiting in the number of events you can fit in a given cell. So it'll eliminate any of that restriction, print it as a list, and all the events will show up, and the members can have that printed document for their reference should they need it. In addition to allowing printing, we also allow administrators now to register on behalf of members after the event start time. So it used to be the members were subjected to a registration window. They could register so many days in advance up until a certain point, and then they could register no further. And administrators were subject to that slightly differently in that they were allowed to register up until the start time of the event. Now, given feedback from our clubs and the requirement that people show up sometimes without registering, and then they pay for the event or they're allowed to attend the event, but we want to have a record of them having registered. We now allow you to add registrations to a given event as an administrator after the event has already started. So like I said, as people walk in, you take note of them, and then later on you can go into that event, register on behalf of those members, so that you have that record of them attending it, whether it's for future use in terms of marketing to people that attended a particular type of event that you're holding annually and you want to invite those same people, or just to make sure you have them on record that they attended for the purposes of charging or what have you. But suffice it to say, the event can already have started, or it can have happened yesterday. You can go in and still add registrations to that event on behalf of members. Also, we introduced the concept of something called internal notes. So when you are registering on behalf of a member through the website, you're going to have the regular notes field, which you look closely in my screenshot, it's above the highlighted internal notes, but then the internal notes can be used for internal purposes. So these will never be communicated to a member by way of the booking screen or through a confirmation email. These are going to be strictly for the club, and they're accessible through the event report. So you'll be able to go into the event report, print it off, and see in that rightmost column that there are internal notes outlining any notes that you put in there, specifically for people at the club and not for the members' consumption. So just a little feature to give you some more flexibility in terms of the information you put into a given registration. Online statements. So we know members are always viewing statements. And one of the things they want to know is, how much do I actually owe? So what we've done is created a new calculation to show them the amount that they're actually that's actually due at a particular point in time. So we introduced this concept of current balance due. What that is a basically looking at their balance forward from the previous month and then taking away any payments made in the current month. So I know a lot of clubs do show the current statement, and that's where this becomes important. For those clubs that don't show the current month statement, this is a non-factor for you. But for those clubs that do, it will give them a more accurate picture of what they actually owe at the present time. So, like I said, takes into consideration what they had owing prior to the end of the last, or sorry, at the end of the last month, and then any payments they've made against their account in the current month, so that they can see this is what I actually owe, as opposed to this is what I owed on, March 1st, and then with no change throughout the rest of the month. So as they send in payments, those will be factored in and taken out of the current balance. In order to take advantage of this, you must be running a version of Jonas Club Management, which is 2020.1382 or higher. So that was released, I think, in last August. So if you've updated to 2021, all of those versions will cover it. And like I said, any version of 2020 greater than 1382 will include it. Similarly, on the Encore side, if you're an Encore club, anybody running a version of Encore higher than 20.52 or higher. That was released last May. So in all likelihood, you've already got it. But just want to make sure, if you're not seeing any consistencies, you would see the appropriate amount. We had a question from Gregory Doyle saying, can we see what that screen might look like for them? Gregory, it's actually not changed. The screen would be exactly the same, just the balance due value would be current as opposed to a stale dated balance forward from the previous month. So no change in screen per se, just a change in the value being displayed in that balance due value at the top of the screen, whether it's the account summary or the statement itself. Another change we've made to respond to a lot of requests from our client base is the ability for dependent members to view the statements without their primary member having registered. So under normal circumstances, the statement belongs to the primary account. And excuse the terminology of dependents and primary. Really what we're talking about is one account is given primary status, and then the other accounts all bill to that same account. But those secondary accounts or dependent accounts want the ability to view the statement. And sometimes the primary member hasn't registered or will never register. And it's unfair to those other accounts to not be able to see the statement when they're primarily responsible for paying it down or managing that account. So what we've done is, if a club allows it, if they say that the dependent members are able to view the statement by default, upon their registration of the dependent member, we will add the ability for them to see the statement, within a few hours. So nothing changing there in terms of how the statements get uploaded. It's just that instead of me having to wait for my spouse to register for her account, I have the ability to view the statements upon registration of my account. And again, that's dependent on the club configuring the ability for dependents to view the primary statement. So like I said, that just happens automatically. We had another question, this time from Kathy Dolan, asking, so you don't see itemized payments in the current month? No, if you are displaying the current statement, you will see the itemized payments in the current month. However, the current month activity doesn't contribute to the balance due unless it's a payment against the account. So what we don't want to do is have someone look at the current balance, which is the balance of the account as of the latest statement update that was received on the web, and have to look at two different values. That's because current month charges are not really payable until the end of the month. So during that intervening period, so say throughout the month of March, any charges against my account are not due until the end of the month when the March statement is produced. However, any payments against my account during the month of March are applicable to my balance due because they're paying down my balance. So you'll still see the itemized. However, the balance due, the value shown at the top of the statement, would be a more accurate representation of what is actually due, while the current balance is always current. So based on any transactions that we've had in the current month, we're going to continuously update that current balance, but that amount is not really due until that month is finalized. So current balance due at the top would indicate what they actually have remaining to pay, if anything. So for instance, if you went in on March 2nd and paid down the entire balance of your account, your balance due would be zero. But your current balance may be something, right? Because you may have had other charges in that month that are still accruing against your account, albeit not payable till the end of that month. Barbara Perkins asks, where do we check our settings to make sure that dependents can see statements? Okay, so perhaps I will show you that. Let me just drag that into view. And you should be able to see my website now, and I'll go into the settings screen. So in Club Central, there is a statements configuration option, wherein you have a bunch of different settings you can configure, but for the purposes of this example within the configuration, you're really looking at this value right here, which is allow all dependents to view statements by default. So if that's checked, when a dependent account, quote unquote dependent account, registers for or signs up for the ClubHouse Online, they have the ability to go to the statement, and we'll bring up that data immediately. Well, like I said, within probably takes 4 to 6 hours for that statement data to update, but from that point forward, without any action required on the part of their primary, that statement would be available. Online court booking. So last year was sort of a big year for online court booking. We made a lot of changes to it, mostly revolving around the waiting list. So we've now introduced a waiting list for court booking, which allows members to submit waiting list requests for times that are already booked. They can submit the request. Those requests will be prioritized in the order they were submitted. And then when a requested time becomes available, we're going to look at that waiting list and we're going to send out emails to the people on it or to the person on it, depending on the situation. And they'll receive an email by way of which they can accept the offer. In addition to that, when they're creating the request, they can opt to say, I want to automatically accept the first offer, in which case there's no email. We'll automatically make the booking on their behalf upon the other person canceling it. And then they also have the ability within a request to say, I want to swap an existing less preferable booking on the same day for the same court type. So let's say I go to make a booking for Saturday and the only time available is 4 p.m. And I really don't want to play at 4 p.m. I'd much rather play in the morning, but the morning's booked up. So I can submit a request for multiple courts at a given time and say, I'm looking at grass courts 1 through 5. Any of them, if they become available with a start time between 9 and 12, I'm willing to take that time. And as a function of that, I don't want to have a second booking because the club doesn't allow me to have 2 bookings on the same day. I can say I want to swap my 4 p.m. booking on grass court 1, and then when the waitlist processes and I'm offered a time or I accept a time, it'll automatically remove that other booking, and I will have only the current booking the more preferable one that I submitted a waitlist request for. Now, this whole system is driven based off of configuration that you guys have in the back office as to various ranges. But you can see here when you're making a waiting list request, you have the ability to see which courts are accepting requests because of bookings that exist. And then when you're making the request, you have the ability to say, I want to make that on behalf of one court or many courts, an acceptable start time range. So when you're looking for if a booking should occur within this range of start times, those are the ones I'm willing to accept offers for. How long you're playing for, number of players, and then of course, like I said earlier, are you automatically accepting the first available offer, or are you going to swap an existing booking? And should you select swap an existing booking, it'll prompt you to say which booking do you want to choose, and it'll give you your list of bookings. Kathy Brunog asks, and I hope I pronounced that right, asks, does this also work through Jam? Absolutely. So it's both web and back office combined. The back office is sort of the master of this, but as a club, you will have the ability in Jam to accept or to create waiting list requests on behalf of members. The system is all triggered by automation. So you're going to set up ranges. We afford you 3 ranges. One is there's an exclusivity offer to members, so only one member at the top of the waiting list gets the offer. And then subsequent to that, there's a range during which everybody gets an offer. And then there's a third range where you don't send out offers at all, and the time just goes back into inventory, and anyone can book it by way of the website. There is a question from Tim Emery asking, can we set up pages pre-filtered by court type, tennis, racquetball, swim lane, etc., like you can do with appointment booking? Not at the precise moment, Tim, but it is something we are working on for this spring to give you the ability to create distinct court booking pages for a given, we'll call it activity type. So if you're thinking like in the case of say tennis, so you'd have tennis would be the activity type, and then you'd have indoor, outdoor, grass, clay, shale, what have you would be the court types, and it would be isolated to that. So we are in the process of developing something to address that, similar to how we do it in appointment booking. So like I said, there's a process of automation that goes through and will then generate emails to go to clients. So this is an example of an offer email. You'll have some configurable text you can add in at the top and at the bottom, but otherwise it's generally pretty much a stock message with your club logo at the top. You can put that in. And like I said, you have header and footer text, but generally speaking, the offer email is going to look like this. It's going to tell them the date and the time of the booking that they're being offered, and they have the option to accept or decline. The reason that there's a decline or a decline all is so that the member can quickly say, no, I don't want this. I'm really not interested in it. Something else has come up. I don't want it anymore, so that their duration of exclusivity isn't completely used up. And what I mean by that is to say, if you were to offer members the ability to sit on that, to have that exclusivity for 4 hours, if they didn't respond to it at all or didn't accept it, then we would have to wait those 4 hours until the next person would be offered. And the reason for that is people aren't, checking their email religiously, and we don't expect them to. So when they do come across that notification on their phone or on their email, on their desktop computer, they would have at least some opportunity to address it when they needed to, or if they needed to contact people to see if they were okay with that same time, they would have that opportunity. When they hit decline, right away, the next person on the list is going to be sent the offer with the same kind of constraints. The decline all is present for scenarios where you may get multiple offers at the same time. So if there's a large block or booking that's deleted from the calendar, which opens up multiple times, which may be within your acceptable range, you may see an offer for, instead of just indoor hardcourt 2 at 8 a.m., you may see indoor hardcourt 1 at 8 a.m., you may see indoor hardcourt 2 at 9 a.m. Who knows? There may be a list of offers that you have the opportunity to accept or decline at that time. And the decline all says, I'm really not interested in any of these times anymore. Don't consider me for any further waitlist requests. I actually changed my plans. I don't want to play at this time anymore at all. And then, like I said, it clears them out of all those times, and then they can be sent out to other people who may or may not be willing to accept them. We also introduced the concept of cancellation policy. So this basically enforces a period of, or really 3 periods of time. One is there's a period of time which you can cancel and you're not subject to any fees. Then there's a period of time during which you can cancel, but if you do so, you will be subjected to fees. And then finally, there's the period beyond which you can no longer cancel. So Basically, the cancellation policy will be shown on the booking screen when a member makes a booking, and it'll also be shown on the confirmation screen just to reinforce it. And it basically outlines that the booking A is subject to a cancellation policy, B when you can cancel until, so the deadline of cancellation, and C the range during which you're going to be charged if you were to cancel. There's a question from Janet Fraser asking, recently when I log into the website, when I select switch to Club Central, I have to re-log in again. Is there a way to change this? Janet, that's something we are working on fixing. It's an outgrowth of some of the security changes we put in back in January, and we will do our best to resolve that in the next month or so. So you may be familiar with online ordering, you may not. It's a module we released in, I want to say, the fall of 2019, and grew to great popularity during the early stages of the pandemic when in-house dining was out the window and everyone was looking for another way to generate some revenue from their food and beverage operation because members still wanted to get food from the club. So we really promoted online ordering at that time. But as it started out, it was really just you can order from the restaurant or the halfway house or what have you, for now. You had no ability to say, I want to order for tonight at 6 o'clock or tomorrow or later in the week or what have you. So we introduced order ahead, I think in June of last year, June or July of last year. And it allows members to make orders or place orders for any outlet in advance of the actual pickup time. So what happens is, if this is turned on, members have the ability to order ahead for a given outlet, even if the outlet itself is not open at the present time. However, the pickup times, the times for which they're ordering, are subject to the schedule of the outlet. So if the outlet's not open on a particular day, I can't order ahead for that day. But for any day where it is open, I have the ability to order ahead. And in addition to that, we introduced some new order types. And by way of those order types, we can specify sort of a lead time. So then what happens is it calculates from open time plus lead time what the first available order time is there. So to show you how this sort of looks, you can see here on the images I've provided, looking at the first image, it shows the grill is currently not open. It doesn't reopen until January 28th at midnight. So then on the second one, I've decided I wanted to order from the grill, and I can see what my options are. So first, the option to order now is not there. It's disabled, and that's because the outlet is closed. So you can't order for I want it as soon as possible. You can only order for the future. And the future then determines what dates are there. So it doesn't reopen until the 28th. So on the 28th, I can see that I can pick that date. And then on the 28th, it's showing me the available order times for that date, driven by the lead time of the order type pickup, and the start time of the outlet, which is 12 a.m. So once they start putting this in, that'll send that order to the queue, and someone at the club can monitor the queue and push all those orders to the printers by way of the queue functionality. So as I said, we did add more order types, again, based on popular demand, things people were looking for. And in addition to creating an order type, we also allowed you to have a configurable question per order type, which allows people to supply an answer. So thinking in terms of delivery, that's a sort of a special one where we'll actually show the members available addresses and they can pick the address to which they want it delivered. But in addition to that, we give them the opportunity to enter a different address. So say, for instance, that the address that they're currently at, they're at a friend's house, or they're somewhere else where they don't have an address stored in Jonas anywhere. They have the ability to key in that address and submit that along with the order. And that'll be printed atop the ticket, where the person who's fulfilling it can see where it has to be delivered. Deborah Parker asked, the order ahead feature includes day of which goes directly to the queue. We would like the day of to go to the printer. Is this something you're working on? Not presently. I mean, what you're basically asking for, Deborah, I think, is that when it goes to the queue and gets queued up for a particular date and time, do you want it to be then forced to the printers when we hit that date and time when the order should be prepped? Let me know through by way of the chat, and I'll get back to it. Like I said, we also had, so originally it was eat in, pick up, to go. We added delivery, like I said, with the address option, and we also added to go curbside and deliver to club location. So Curbside, basically, this was to address the number of curbside pickups that we were seeing for people picking up meals to go at the club. And again, you can ask a question. So a lot of times what we recommend in that scenario is make and model plus license plate of vehicle, so the person who's fulfilling it knows to whom they have to drop the order. And then deliver to club location is suitable for scenarios where I'm at a pool chair or I'm at a particular hole in the golf course. And then you can say, where are you located? And the person could say, I'm at pool chair 37, or I'm at table 6 on the patio, or I'm on the 9th hole and we should be on the 10th hole shortly if you're out on the golf course. So like I said, with the or the delivery option, you get the ability to see all of the members' addresses. They can select among those, or like I said, they can select that radio button that says deliver to a different address, and they can have that. They can then enter a specific address for that delivery option. There's another question from Monica Henniger asking, is there a way to set an order outlet for future orders only? We have frozen takeout, which members need to order a minimum of 2 days in advance. Not presently, Monica. You have to have the outlet has to be open. The question is whether or not your schedule will allow it. If it's always just a rolling 2 days, then that becomes a little more difficult, because right now the outlet has to be open at some point. But if you were to say that you can order from Sunday through Wednesday and you only have pickups on Thursday and Friday, or Friday and Saturday, that's something that could be possible based on the outlet being open. But this is something that we've heard before, and it's worth considering further if we can bake in a sort of minimum advance order, because the way it works right now is that there's a lead time, but it's more designed in terms of minutes, not in terms of days. We don't even think allow the configuration of what would have to be 115,000 minutes in order to accommodate a 2-day lead time. So that's something we can think more on. Bill and I can discuss offline afterward, but I understand the request, especially for events like Thanksgiving and stuff, where members are ordering meals, as well as any frozen to go orders, where you need to enforce a longer lead time between order submission and order fulfillment.
Yeah, it would be great if we could get some feedback from anyone that's interested in that kind of feature. Please send us messages in the chat, and we can add that to our list of how you'd like to see it done. We would want to get pretty specific on whether, like Rob said, whether you have a range of it's always on this day that you order, or between these days that you order and these days that you pick up. That'd be really helpful, because we have had some discussions on it, and we have a few ideas that we're planning, but I would love some extra feedback. That'd be great.
Okay, so it looks like my camera is on the fritz. Bill, can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay. The camera's not so important. I'll just try to reconnect to see if it can come back up. But as long as my audio is good, that's probably sufficient. So again, another example, just deliver to club location. Again, there's that question we're allowing you to ask. Please indicate cabana or chair number. That text is configurable, right? So you have the ability to specify the question that you're asking for a particular order type. So feel free to put whatever it is you want in there, and that would be specific to the particular outlet and the particular deliver to club location order type you set up. So another question from Janet. So just to clarify the process, member places an online order for the next day pickup at 6 p.m. The order is going to send to the online ordering queue, say at 5:30 the day of the pickup. Staff then pushes the kitchen to print. No, the order will be in the queue immediately. So upon submission of the order will be present in the queue. It's whomever, the queue can be set up by day. So really when you go in to start the day, you can take a look at what's in the queue and then what needs to be fired immediately and what can be dealt with later. So it's really a queue management task. But the orders, when submitted, will hit that day's queue, the future date, upon submission. They don't sit anywhere else in wait. They sit in the queue, and then you can fire them from the queue. But I think what Deborah is asking for is the possibility of it goes to the queue immediately, but we calc when we need to fire it, and it gets fired automatically from the queue at some point prior to the order. So if it was a half-hour lead time required on it, then in your particular case, Janet, at 5:30, it would fire to the queue. It would fire, but it's always present in the queue. One of the later things we did was the ability to expand or collapse the menus by default. So originally it was expanded by default, where you could see all the menu items at all times. We offered then the ability to say, I want to collapse the menus or the menu groups rather by default, and you can configure that in the back office to do that. And when it does come up, the left-hand example is collapsed by default, where you can see beverages, sandwiches, and snacks, versus the right-hand example where they're expanded, where you can see all the individual items within it. So it's really just a club preference, whatever you think will make more sense for your members. The larger your menu, obviously, again, members would have to do more scrolling to find something in the sandwiches or snacks when they're expanded. But again, depends on your menu. It depends on your menu. Depends on your preferences. You can set it up either way to be expanded or collapsed by default, and the members always have the ability to expand, collapse those menus on their own, should they choose to do so. So, just because you set it as collapsed doesn't mean the members can't see it. It just means they have to touch that chevron or click that chevron to expand the menu to show them. All right, moving on to online class scheduling. So we've had a class scheduling module for a long time, but in September or October of last year, we got out of our beta program and made it available to the masses. The ability to use our class scheduling module online, and really, just to talk about it's a fully responsive module, so it works equally well on tablet, desktop, or mobile device. It integrates with their activity management class scheduling module, so all the bookings are going to be shared between the two platforms. Looks like my camera's working again. That's good. And members will have the ability to go online. So when you create a class, you're creating what we call an instance, and an instance can have recurrence. And in that recurrence means you have occurrences of the classes occurring on multiple days a week, or 1 day a week, or 1 day a month, or however you configure it. But members will have the ability to go in and register for more than one class at a time. So if a given class, let's say your yoga class, takes place Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m., a member can go online and register for multiple instances of that class in one fell swoop. So instead of having to go to each one, when they go to a particular instance, they'll have the ability to say, I want to register for the Monday this week, the Friday this week, and maybe the Wednesday next week, and then hit the submission, and it'll make individual bookings for each of those classes. It allows for a registration range, and actually this week will be allowing you to configure that registration range in terms of hours in addition to terms of days. So we got a lot of feedback from clubs that were saying, I set it to 2 days prior, but that means it opens exactly at the same time as another instance of the class, and people spend the first 5 minutes of each class trying to register for the next one as opposed to actually participating in the class. And so they wanted to stagger it a bit. So when you configure it in terms of hours, you can say, instead of being 48 hours prior, make it 46 hours prior, so it's not at the start time of the previous instance, and people can then register for that on their own time as opposed to in the middle of a given class. And like appointment booking, so to the questions we heard before, you have the ability to create individual pages for different types of classes. So if you want to put fitness in one place and tennis clinics and golf clinics in other places on the site, again, you can have that ability to create dedicated pages for each. Okay, so we got a couple questions here. Kathy Dolan asks, can you charge one price for a single class and a bulk price if they register for more than one class? We do this in the case of something that we call course and class registration, which we also support, but I don't think that's what you're asking about. A course is like, I'm registering for all instances of a given class in one fell swoop, and I want to attend all of them, versus single registration, which is I want to pick and choose the classes I want to attend. So what we would recommend in that case, if you want to charge a bulk price, is using something like prepaid services if you have it, where you can sell them a book and they can redeem one of their prepaids against a class as opposed to being charged a price. So you will be able to do that bulk charging through bulk discounting rather through prepaid services. Peggy Hatch asked, is online class scheduling included in the event module? No, Peggy, these are separate modules. They're similar in some respects in that there are many people registering for a single event. However, they're different in that classes have resources that can be assigned to them, providers that can be assigned to them. So there's some scheduling of resources that events doesn't do in that regard, and that's where class is. So it's a separate module from event management that is available for purchase. Janet asks, right now we enter all of these into event management. Would this replace entering them on the event calendar? Is it viewable in the online calendar in the My Bookings? Lots of questions there. So I wouldn't say it would replace entering them on the event calendar. Yes, you can enter them into a separate calendar. The class scheduling module, which we'll see in a second, has a similar view to the online calendar, but it would be independent of it. Can you see them in your event calendar? Not the classes themselves, but the bookings would show if they had any. And then the question is, do they show in My Bookings? Yes. So all of these would go to the central My Bookings once they're made. Tim Emery asks, when setting up the classes, is the duplicate option available yet? It will be as of Wednesday. So I was just writing a release note on it this morning. We will reinstate duplicate functionality. And it will be available in version 21.3.2 of Jam or Encore, which is available this week. And it works a little bit like the event duplication. So I won't go into too much detail, but basically you'll get a screen that pops up, a dialog that says, okay, you're duplicating this class instance. What do you want to change? What do you want to keep? So you can change the start time, you can change the duration, you can change the recurrence schedule. And then once you continue with the duplication, it'll actually pop up the edit window for that class, and you can make any further modifications you want to make before saving it. But yes, the duplicate function is back as of, if you're a Jam client, probably Wednesday. If you're an Encore client, in the very near future. So this is what it looks like. I was just talking about it. So very similar to the event management module, but kept separate because we don't want to pile everything on top of each other. So I know I've seen a lot of clubs that are using the event calendar to put their fitness classes and stuff in there. And what that ends up happening, especially if you do pool reservations as well, is that you end up with 30, 40 events per day. And that little cell that can contain 4 events at a time then has a plus number that says plus 35 more, and someone has to click to open it, and it's a scrolling list. So it's not a great experience for the user, but what we're trying to do is provide you with these silos within which members can see specifically certain things. So a class isn't an event, it's a class. It goes in its calendar. The events have events within them. So things like, Nine and Dines, member guests, Italian night, seafood night, that sort of thing falls in the event. And the other stuff would go into classes if you have fitness classes or, golf clinics, tennis clinics, etc. So I would think, that's sort of the watershed you can use to divide the two streams. Club hosted events members can attend versus, classes or clinics that you're hosting for a particular area of the club. You can see here that on the desktop, it's going to show up, desktop and tablet will show up as a calendar with a grid and the days and the individual events, versus mobile where it'll show as a list. And again, just for practicality reasons on the mobile device, you cannot see nearly enough in a grid when your phone is in portrait, and then you can't see enough depth in it when you're in landscape. So best suited to a list, and that's why we've done it that way. So question from Janet Frazier. So the benefit to the online class scheduling over putting these in the event calendars, they can pick and choose classes or sign up for all at once rather than having to go to each class in the event calendar. Yes, that's one benefit. Like I said, the other benefit is separating things so not everything's commingled into a giant list. Stephanie Anderson asks, can you link an event to the class scheduling sign up? Not really, no. You could link to the calendar, but you couldn't really link to the individual class within it. Kathy Dolan asks, does this module integrate with Zoom? Could we provide a Zoom link on the online class registration? Kathy, I think I got a call from Tim McGurk last week in this regard. We are working on something to be put into the event confirmation to include a Zoom link if possible, if entered into the event. So that's something we're considering right now and would be for future development. So I would hope maybe in the next couple of months, we'll be able to provide you with that functionality by way of the event confirmation. So registration screen, as I was describing before, you can register yourself. When you go book, you'll be added and you'll have the ability to add members or buddies and groups. And you'll also have the ability on the left-hand side to see all the available dates. And you can register for one or more of the upcoming ones. You can see in my particular example, I can see the 28th, the 2nd, the 4th, and the 9th occurrences of that event. And that list is governed by the advanced registration window. So if you were to say you could book 4 weeks out, I would probably see more. In my case, it's set to 2 weeks out. So I'm only seeing instances within the next 2 weeks. And then at the bottom, you can see some more information in terms of you could expand that to unavailable dates to see the dates that are currently not within the registration window. And then in the more info, you can see things like others attending, who's providing it, as well as any costs associated with it. But the others attending is nice because members see who else is going, and then they make a decision whether they want to go or not because someone they don't like is in the class. So it just affords them that ability to make choices based on the information that's available. And as I mentioned earlier, you have the ability to create a unique page per activity type. So if you have, your fitness classes you want in one screen, or you can have multiple activity types on a given page. Like you could say, I want fitness plus yoga plus Pilates. We've created 3 separate activity types, but I want them all to be on one page. That's fine. But I want my golf clinics on a separate page, and I want my tennis clinics on a separate page. You have that ability. So it's one or many activity types on a given page, but as many pages as you want. And on those pages, you would only see classes from the activity types selected to be on that page. So again, this just goes through the configuration. You have all this information in the PDF that should be available within the stream screen in Socio, but you can see here how I'm selecting a particular page type called the generic class, and then I have the ability to select which activity types. I can rename the module label. I can rename the register buttons. I can rename the search text that shows up. All of that stuff can be done. And again, like I said, the document name is going to be what's shown in the navigation. So if you wanted to say yoga classes or you wanted to say yoga, fitness, and Pilates, up to you. All of those options are available when you create that page in which the classes are going to reside. And then you can see that you can create specific nodes on your website. In my case here, I've created under fitness, I've created a yoga classes page. So again, context specific. So if members are looking for fitness, fitness classes, they probably are going to look under the fitness node in the navigation. So you may want to put a page there. Doesn't stop you from putting separate pages in Member Central as well. More access points are never a bad thing. You just got to make sure that you maintain sort of conciseness within your navigation. You don't want to have a sprawling navigation, which members have to look sideways and sometimes creeps off your screen or results in that more icon coming up where members have to open the more and see what else is there. Try to maintain a very concise navigation and then make it context specific. So when I'm looking in a particular area, I can find all the things. And like I said, no limit to the number of pages you can add. You can have redirects within your navigation. So you're just pointing back at the same page. You're just creating an entry therein so that people can find it where they're looking for it. Online tea time. So last summer, we undertook a large project to improve the performance of our tea times, really revolved around a couple of key areas. So in order to improve the performance, sort of the load time and when members view the tea sheet or go to book a time, we instituted a lot of caching. So basically that means we hold things in memory that would otherwise be loaded live. So with that, you're going to get some situations where maybe you don't see your booking on the tea sheet immediately after you make it. That's going to take up to a minute. But you know that if you get a confirmation, that means that you've successfully booked that time. And B, you can go to My Bookings, and that's always updated live to show you what bookings you have. So if you make a booking in tea times and then you go to the tea sheet and don't see it, don't fret. It may take up to a minute and a refresh for those to appear, but you can always go to My Bookings and you can always rely on the fact that you got a confirmation on screen. That is the first and probably most important indicator that you've received a tea time, despite the tea sheet not showing it, is that you got a confirmation. That means we were successful end to end in making that booking from the website to the back office. So that's one thing to check. So, but what it does do when we cache those things is it improves the load time for the end user. So if I hit the tea sheet during a busy time, one person is going to be a little bit slower, and then everyone else is going to follow in a very quick succession, and it's going to load very quickly. The second thing we did was we sort of offloaded some processes that were not crucial to the booking experience. So for example, the confirmation email. So previously, those would have been handled in sequence. You would make your booking, send it over. The system would create the booking, then send out the email, and then respond back to the website to say, yes, your booking is completed. And sometimes that email can take a bit of time because of a variety of factors in terms of the SMTP server at the club and more technical stuff that we won't get into. So what we did was we said, okay, let's offload that process. Instead of doing that in sequence, let's park that process and have it run based on a service that wakes up every 5 or 10 minutes. So the email confirmation in my experience, is a very important part of a booking project or a purchase process, where I get notification via email that sort of closes the loop. I know that I've made a booking. I know that it's complete. I know that I've purchased something because I got this email. So we didn't want to not send the email. So what we did is we said, okay, park this, respond back to the web and say, yes, the booking is complete as quickly as you can, eliminating that email, but still run that email just at a later time that wakes up in a separate process. So it's not burdening the response back to the website. That's happening relatively quickly. But the email is still going out, just a few minutes delayed. And I think that's worked quite well for a number of clubs, having seen it myself in practice, in terms of improving the amount of time that a member spends after they hit that book now button on a tee time. It really can expedite the response, and really, because that response works more quickly, everybody else in the chain also will move more quickly. So it really does help the performance of tee times when we institute this. And this is something you can contact support to find out more about, because it is something we put in place probably last summer. And I don't think it's been, we've gone into some of the busier clubs and implemented it, but on a sort of massive scale, this has not taken root. So if you have questions, if you're looking to make your tee times a little bit faster, this is an opportunity to talk to support, and they can institute that Jonas service, which will take care of email notifications. And the last thing we looked at was consistency of the countdown. So, across browsers, across devices, trying to improve it so that nobody's getting an advantage, that the countdown is consistent across browsers and across tabs. We did some work on that. We'll continue to do work on that to ensure that it is better, but that was a common complaint that some people were saying, I got the tee sheet open on one window versus another more quickly, and we've closed some gaps there, and we continue to close gaps in that regard. Okay, there's a question from Janet Fraser asking, has there been discussion exploring a way to be able to push or email all that are on a tee sheet for a specific day? Janet, we discussed that so much 2 years ago that we put it into ProShop notifications back then. So through ProShop notifications in tee time management, you have the ability to send out a email and or push notification, and in the very near future, a text message to anybody on the tee sheet, or a selection of times on that tee sheet on a given day, to notify them, whether it be frost delay, lightning warning, etc. Those options are available within ProShop notifications. Sean Ganderton asks, tee times live day, how many on-course staff can see the live tee sheet with updates from the Pro Shop? The website does not update this very often on that live day. Okay, you can, as many users as you want can view the live tee sheet, but you're limited to a certain number of licenses that can actually make bookings. So if someone is not going to be making bookings, you may have to configure their user preferences so that they're only a view-only user, but anybody can view it on the tee sheet. The website updates regularly. As bookings are made, it comes up. Like I said, there's a 60-second cache that will take place when a person views the tee sheet. They make a booking. They may not see that booking immediately, but it's about 60 seconds of cache, and then refresh that screen and they will see those new bookings. So if you're looking at the back office tee sheet, as many users as you want can view it, but again, depending on whether or not they have the ability to book. So if their user can book, then they're going to occupy a license, and you only have a number of licenses. How many? Depends on the club. Oftentimes when we sold tee time management, it's a 3-user license module. However, you can add more to that. I don't think that's necessary to do so. You may just want to have a user that's a view-only user. They can log in as that. They can view the tee sheet. They won't have any ability to book, but if they want to see a live version of it, they will have that capability. So you may need to create multiple users per person, one where they can book, one where they can't, so that if they book in with the user that can book, and there's no licenses available, they'll get that license message. They can log out, log in as a user that cannot book, and then they'll be able to view the tee sheet accordingly. Content management. So for those of you that are using a widget site, and you can tell this by looking in Club Central at your Janet, ProShop notifications, I'll show you that in a second. Once we get through the presentation, I'll show you where that is. Widget reordering. So if you're using a widget site, you can tell that you're using a widget site based on this little letter to the right of your site name in Club Central. So mine says -W, that's a widget site. It may say -R, that's a responsive site, or it may say -NR, which is a non-responsive site. You're going to fall into one of those 3 categories. If, however, you are a widget site, we've added the ability to reorder widgets within the page view. So you can drag and drop them. And when you do, you're going to see this sort of reduced view where you won't see the content. So it allows for a little easier reorganization because you're not getting those widget bars commingled with the content that lives within them. So Janet was asking about Pro Shop notifications. Let me just bring that up onto the screen. Bear with me 1 second.
Janet, I'm not sure which tea time system you're using. Rob will be talking about the Jonas Club Management tea times. I'm not sure if you're using the members.
Excellent point, Bill. Oh, she is using members first. So what I would have shown you would be pointless in that case, but that's something we can bring up with the team on members first tea times and maybe get them to give you an answer if there is one. Let me just take note of that. Okay. With that, that is the end of the formal part of the presentation. However, we have some time to take any questions that, so let me just take note of Jordan Meserole as well. But we're open the floor to any questions anyone has in general about Clubhouse Online or specifically about a particular feature or any features you're looking for that we don't offer today. Please feel free to enter your questions into the chat box and we can respond to them as we go. And I'll leave the floor open until about 10:55. I'll give everyone a chance if they have another session at 11 o'clock to jump out and get a drink or get a bio break, whatever is necessary. So please feel free to ask any and all questions now. Logan asks, oh, he's just thanking us for the presentation. He asked, are there plans to allow dining reservations to be updated from the app? Logan, that's always something we consider. I mean, dining reservations are a bit of a tricky one in that there's so many things that could change on it that basically you're really looking to create a new one. And then once you're able to get what you want, then scrap the old one. So I know Bill and I have discussed this not long ago. It is something we're considering, just not something that we have scheduled for development at the precise moment, but it is something that we've heard a lot from the client base and something that we will consider for future. Sam Roby asks, is there a way to automatically get new members or member updates like emails? Oh, I just lost my place. Like emails updated to Clubhouse without having to export sync. That should happen automatically. There's no need to, or are you talking about email marketing? I don't think that's going to change in any way. So if you're talking, Sam, about email marketing, then you do have to run the export or sync in order to push those changes up. Peggy Hatch asks, I understand there's going to be a lot going to be a big update to Campaigner. Can you speak on when and if on that and when it will happen? We actually offer another email marketing solution called Frankie Email Marketing, which is a different solution from Campaigner that has been available for, I'd probably say, a year, maybe a little over that. You may want to speak to your local rep, Peggy, if you're looking at getting off of Campaigner and moving to Frankie.
I think what she was asking there, Rob, is that there's going to be an update soon, which I believe is that they're releasing the different entry screen. So there's a new way to create your campaign. Because she's saying there's going to be a big upgrade to Campaigner. I don't know that it's scheduled yet. Erica mentioned it in one of our meetings recently. They're trying to get that out to everyone shortly. They've been testing it with a few clients just to make sure it's going to work for everybody. I think it is a better user experience from a editing standpoint.
Erica chimed in with drag and drop editing, I think is the big change. Jordan Meserole asks, are state required pool reservations last year due to COVID? I know you covered classes module, but is there something that works for pool reservations in place or that you're exploring? Jordan, I would say if it's just pool reservations where you're registering a bunch of people that can be in the pool at a particular time, that class is the best option for that. If, however, you're talking about something like lap swim lanes, then you may want to look at something like court booking alternatively. But generally speaking, I'd say we're not really working on something right now to address pool reservations specifically. They would sort of fall under the umbrella of class scheduling. Shannon asks, is there any discussion about creating a, oh, just jumped on me. Is there discussion about creating a wait list for the T-sheets similar to the court bookings? Not right at this moment, but that is something, you know, that we'll monitor from the client base to see the feedback if they're looking for something similar to that. And we will, you know, as with anything that we do, consider it on a basis of, you know, how many clients will this impact, how many people are looking for this. But that is a fairly big project. The court booking waitlist was not something we undertook in the matter of weeks. It was a matter of months. So we would, like I said, monitor the client base for feedback, but duly noted that you're looking for something like that. And we will take that, you know, when we consider future projects, understand that you are asking for that and other clients maybe as well. Peggy asks, if we have a dynamic list of active members for email marketing, does that update automatically or do we have to export and sync? The list itself or the segment would update automatically in Campaigner or the email marketing system, but it would depend on any changes that you've made to members to be exported or synced. So again, the system is only good as the information that's within it. And in order to get those changes up there, you do need to periodically export or have the service running to run that export automatically. But yes, nothing would change. Again, if you make a change in the back office, it's not necessarily going to Campaigner immediately. Janet asks, with event management, we recently had issues. We had issues with events syncing recently, but it was random on which events it affected and even recreated and resynced and still didn't work. Not sure if this was resolved with the recent maintenance. Also, descriptions do not change if you update an Encore. You have to physically change the notes in the event calendar online. Is there a way to sync any changes at any time that are made in Encore to the online calendar? Wow, loaded question. You can sync any event changes from Encore in the event screen. So there's always going to be a sync button within that edit screen, and that should sync it immediately. The online description does not get updated because you can configure a basic description in Encore within that web tab, but you can't configure an HTML description like you can within the web. So what happens is when you initially send that event up, we bring up that description, but as soon as you add one on the web, you have to modify that on the web just because the systems are completely different in terms of the content entered. So in the back office, it's just plain text. On the web, it's an HTML based one. So if you add something on the web, changes in the back office for Encore for that description field only will not be updated. But everything else should update automatically on save, or if you specifically want to run a sync for an individual event, there is a sync button within the edit screen. And ignoring recent hiccups that may have occurred, that sync should work every time you run it, and that save should work every time you run it, unless something entered in the event is failing processing. So oftentimes just take those up with support. They will be able to give you an answer as to what happened. And if they can't, they'll probably escalate it to me, and then I'll be in contact with you or in contact with support at the very least to try and understand what was taking place under those circumstances. But yeah, we've been doing some recent maintenance to try and ensure that the content going up is effectively processed. Monica asks, is there in the online ordering outlet setup, is there a way to set a prompt label for the order type as a drop-down list of options instead of an open text field? No, not at this time. Any of those sort of order type prompts are free-form text as opposed to a pick list, but that's something that we can consider as well. Let me just take note of that. Pick list for order type prompt. Generally speaking, that gets to be a little more of a complicated setup given the screen real estate we have, but it is something we can consider. Like I said, with anything else, the more we hear it, the more likely we are to do it. So it is 10:58. I know other people have sessions coming up in a couple minutes, so I don't want to hold anyone too much longer. I'll be here till 11, but I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this morning. I hope it was informative. You know, please feel free to add any chats or comments into the stream screen on Socio. We'll be monitoring those throughout the week. And, you know, otherwise have a great rest of the week at the Thrive presentations.
Thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate it.